All right, so I figure this is pretty much where it has to happen. This is going to be hard for me. This is going to be hard for some people to hear, but I think that the people that truly know me probably suspected it anyway. This journey began on April 11th of 2024, and it started right here in the same spot, in a cloudy day, rainy day today, just like same spot, Dunkin' Donuts. But you need to know where I started this journey from, because it's important. I had lost everything in my life, everything, and I sat in this spot, and I did not have the best of intentions. I had a lot of pills in the car, and I didn't think I wanted to wake up the next day. I didn't think anybody would miss me. With this disease, I didn't know how good I would be for anybody anymore. And I was at the bottom of the barrel. There's no doubt about it. And I went to grab those pills. I'll never forget. And it's a little bit of a blur, so my apologies. This rosary was in the glove box. I was driving a different car then. This was my son's. It was given to him by somebody very close to him, and I know how much it meant to him. And I was holding it. And I wanted to look online one last time, because I just wanted to see my kids' pictures again. I wanted to just see pictures of everything I loved. And I remember before I came to this parking spot at the Dunkin' Donuts, whether they wanted to hear it or not, I told the people in my life I love them, and they probably didn't realize that I thought it was going to be for the last time. But what happened was, when I went on Facebook actually, I think it was, because I wanted to look at the pictures from my kids' childhood, I had no idea it was National Parkinson's Day. Even though I had it, I wasn't really an advocate at the time. I was actually more afraid to hear things than research them. But I guess because of the algorithms, the Parkinson's National Parkinson's Day came up, and all these. And I said, and I don't know what made me look at it, but I started looking at some of the things, and I started seeing some of the stories and some of the advocates that are online. And I don't know, it just stopped my plan right in its tracks. And as much as I love helping others, and as much as I know I'm trying to do the work like you guys do it and help everybody in this community, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's probably a part of me that wanted to start this because I just wanted somebody other than a neurologist to tell me that they knew what I was feeling. I wanted somebody to tell me that they love me. I wanted somebody to just say, we got this. And I was seeking it in complete strangers. But you know what I realized? You gave it to me. This community may have saved my life that day. So, for all the people that are saying, I don't know how to advocate, I don't think I could do it, listen, if I could do it, anybody can. I was as low in life as you could get. Listen, the worst feeling in the world, and I've come to realize this, is not feeling loved when the people that should love you are still here. It's like they say, like I said in a prior post, it's like right before you die, I'm assuming that's what you feel when you're in jail or incarcerated. That's how I felt. But the worst part was, I wasn't looking for love from the people that were gone. I was looking for love from the people that were right in front of me. And that's a pretty bad place to be in. So listen, if I could do this, and listen, not being able to speak my feelings into existence is not something I've ever done in my life. I know with the amount of times I talk, you're probably laughing but it's true. I hated telling people how I felt. I never wanted to look weak. But I realize now, crying doesn't make you look weak. It shows strength. I saw a podcast where somebody said, every tear that you drop is a fertilizer for the ground that you're walking on. So I just wanted to get back from step one. I wanted to show you guys where I started from, to let you know that if I could do this, where I was at absolute rock bottom, I'm going to take you on the journey with me, how I got to where I am now, being an advocate who I think's voice can be heard, and yours can too. So again, I know this is a little deep to start, but I needed to bring you here, and I needed to bring myself here. But I also wanted to show you guys one other thing. When I first started this, you could see in the video that it was raining, just like today was. But the difference between what today is and what a year makes is, yeah, it's cloudy today at Dunkin' Donuts. Well, the sun's trying to come out, guys. That's how I know I'm in a different place. And you could be too. Okay, so no more crying, at least I don't think. So basically from that moment, I put my first video out. I went from thinking I wasn't going to wake up the next day to just shooting off the cuff and making a page. And when you go back, it's funny, I go back and I watch that first thing, and I had such ambitions as far as what I wanted to do with fundraising and talk about movies. Again, it was just me trying to do the right thing and seeing where it went. And we've done a lot of those things and a lot more. But again, I would be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that didn't do that, because I needed not just feedback as far as information. I needed somebody to say, I got you. I needed somebody to say, you're not alone. That tremor, I have it. Here's what I do. And I will continue to tell everybody this till the day I die. The first person who ever reached out was Allie Signorelli. Didn't know her. She's a complete stranger. And it was basically just a DM saying, hey, welcome to the community. If you ever need anything, I'm here. That meant the world to me, the world. And she has become such a good friend and a mentor to some degree. And her and her family advocate nonstop, and they open their home, and they're such beautiful people. There were some other people in that early sessions that kind of triggered home for me. John Andredock reached out for me. A gentleman named Alex Costa, Adam Jock. And the reason I bring up some of these names is because I knew from looking at Allie's page, I couldn't do what she does, and I still can't. I couldn't put myself out there. I was still sheltered and afraid to show my weaknesses, and I didn't like talking. I didn't like talking on camera. But I saw people like Amy. I saw people like Reka that weren't afraid. I don't want to say goofy, but they weren't afraid to show themselves and dance and get a laugh out of people. And I knew I could do that. I feel like I've always been able to do that. So if you look at a lot of my early posts, it was just like funny stuff, just to try and get a laugh out of people. And I knew that if one person just said to me that day, LOL, I reached somebody. And to me, that meant a lot. Because I feel like as much as I was trying to absorb everything from everybody, it was my way of saying, all right, you've earned it. You've done a little something for somebody today. So it really started that little. And like I said, so I thank the Rekas and the Amy's of the world and Tracy's. There are a lot of people out there that showed me that just trying to get a smile out of people is enough. And then Adam, without even talking to him, just showed me, just put yourself out there, work it out. And I started doing that. And it was kind of my way of you all holding me accountable. So it was trying to get my head on right. It was trying to get my body physically right to make this fight. And I needed it. So my early stages of this page were just that. It was posting a little joke, trying to make a laugh on somebody's day, making them feel better. And you guys know, when you're at that point in your life where nothing's working with Parkinson's, you would give anything just to forget it for 5 minutes, just to laugh. And I felt like if I could do that for somebody, that's all I was looking for at the time. That's all I was looking for. Because you all gave it to me 24/7, and I just wanted to repay it back a little bit, and that's all I knew how to do. I didn't know how to do much. So again, everybody from advocacy brings a little bit to the table. And that was kind of like my early stuff there, because that's all I felt I could do. And then it kind of grew a little bit from there. So then as the days and the weeks started going by, I got a little more comfortable with coming to grips with my feelings, but I still wasn't putting them out there. Still wasn't comfortable being on camera with my facial twitches and whatever the hell else was going on. So what I wanted to do was I loved the sense of community. I knew that in the first couple of weeks, the community, I was getting more advice from you than from doctors. And it was helping me. It was helping my mind more than anything. So I wanted to just try and do something to build sense of community. So if you look back, I used to do stuff like gratitude posts every day, things you're thankful for. We did dopamine dance-offs. I mean, it was just stuff to get everybody involved and try and build more of a community and more of a community. Because, again, even if you didn't need it, I needed it. It was saving me. And that, I know that may sound selfish to say, but I'm being honest with you guys. Again, I wanted to give back as much as I could, but I was getting a million times more than I was giving. So we started with Tim will talk like once and tell you about a project he's working on, and then leave it alone for a month and just type stuff and get everybody building that way. So that's how it grew a little bit, where I started sending out T-shirts. And I started to notice that every LOL I got, every smiley face emoji made me feel so damn good. It really did. And even then, when things weren't working, I knew that I finally realized in my life, even if I wasn't helping others, just the fact that I was trying to made me feel better. It made me feel like I had a reason to wake up. And that was enough at the time. So that's kind of how that started. So I would say after a couple of months of that, just kind of posting little things and little contests and starting to get familiarized with some of the big advocacy names out there and having some dialogue and seeing what they do and studying them and seeing how they help and how they help me, something crazy happened. A gentleman named Dr. George Ackerman reached out for me. Said, I saw your story. I run a page in my mother's memory. And that struck me. I'm saying to myself, this man doesn't have to do this fight anymore. His mother sadly has already passed. He's doing it in her honor. And there was something about that it just hit me. It was like, I wasn't sure what he was getting out of it other than honoring his mom. But that's all he wanted to do. And that meant a lot. And he asked me to just write up something for his website, which I gladly did. Then he asked me to be on a podcast. And I said, I don't like speaking. I didn't know what to do in a podcast. I didn't know how I would look, how I would come across. But again, I wasn't going to tell a man like George doing what he did in his mother's memory. No, it's not in my heart. I wouldn't have done it. So I'll be honest with you. I did that first podcast more for him. I was deathly afraid to do it. But I was honored that he asked me. And that somebody was looking out for me and wanted to hear what I had to say. They wanted to hear my story. So I went on and we talked just about a little bit of my journey where I was to that point. We did not know a lot about each other personally, for sure. And I think it came off pretty well, at least when I look back on it. I mean, and it wasn't horrible. And then one of the first signs that this was meant for me to be with you all and advocate the way you guys do is he reached out for me and said, I've always wanted to do a sports podcast about advocacy and how Parkinson's and sports are related. I didn't know how that would look at the time, but anybody who knows me knows that was one of my dreams. I wanted to be a sports talk radio host after I got injured and I couldn't play professionally or in collegiate level. I love sports. It's my go-to. It's my sanctuary. So it makes me relax. Aside from watching Met games, but the fact that somewhat of a stranger picked me to do that, I was all in. It didn't matter how it was going to look. I was just so excited to do it. And I told him immediately, I'm in. First day. And he has become such a brother of mine. And it was such an honor to meet him in Washington, finally, give him a nice big hug. So that was a big, big thing for me. Just like when Ali reached out for me, that was a huge thing for me. And George, I thank you enough, brother. I owe a lot to you. And this community owes a lot to you for all the advocacy work that you do. That was a huge boost of confidence because I didn't care how I came across in those podcasts, the early ones, because I was just happy to do it. And there's always editing, and we know that. But That was a big thing in my life that changed me. And I will never forget George for that. To this day, I'm so honored and grateful that if one person watches, I don't care. I will do it forever. It is so cool. And I want you guys to check it out. All-Star PD Sportscast. A quick pop. So that brought me to the next level of advocacy. So I would say once we started doing that, George and I, things started opening up a little bit as far as what I saw. You got to understand, I've always been a big believer, and you might not be. Like I've worked my whole life in the car business, not selling cars, but I started in the parts department and just moving cars, and then I became a service guy. I'm a big believer in, if you're going to tackle something, you should have a knowledge of that whole realm, that whole area. I'm also a big believer in, like, even jobs. Like I've always said, like, I think the pharmacist should play the role of the cashier one day. I know that sounds stupid, and it's not because if the cashier calls out that the pharmacist knows how to do it. It's so they have an appreciation of what each other's job is. I think that's a big problem in the world, is that people don't communicate and there's no respect and appreciation for what other people think or what they do. So I've always been a big proponent of just one day a year, everybody should just change jobs just to get an appreciation for what goes into that job and the person that does it. And I think that's a big thing. So I knew at that point with George and the podcast and seeing what Allie does and seeing what everybody else does, I wanted to get a little bit of a general taste of all areas of Parkinson's. Fundraising, advocacy, the science of it, talking to neurologists, what happens in DC. So I knew in here, little by little, I wanted to kind of work my way around that so I could have some intelligence when speaking about it. So I noticed that also it was a big thing that sadly, you almost have to have a spotlight on you. The bigger the people are, the Michael J. Foxes, the Muhammad Ali's. Sadly, it takes people like that who have such a big following, and they've earned that. I'm not saying they don't. Of course, everything they've accomplished in their life. Those are the people that move the needle, not the guy from Jersey. So I found it very humbling and exciting when, like, sports people would come on. Some of the biggest names in sports that have Parkinson's have either come on this show or sent us messages. Go scroll down. You'll see I've talked to Jack Osborne. I've talked to Rashida Ali, Steve Ludzik, Bernie Kosar, Brett Favre. I've had messages from these people. And I think that goes a long way. So again, that was another little building block. And the more podcasts I did with George, the more comfortable I started getting talking on screen. But still, I would try and wait till it was a peak on time where I didn't look as crazy. But again, I started getting a little more comfortable with some of the stuff like that. So again, a lot of this advocacy stuff, I know a lot of people say, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't feel comfortable with any of it. But what I will tell you is the more and more I did a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, not only did I know it helped people, it helped me. And it helped me get more confidence in knowing that we're all working towards a greater cause. And that's far more important than any kind of way that I would feel being on camera. So again, the podcast with George was a very big thing. And I think the more famous people started coming on and you realize that they're just normal people and they all wind up with the same thing you have, fighting the same battle with the same questions and not the same answers. That was important to me. So then I said, okay, I started doing a lot of research with the Fox Foundation on their site, and I saw about a lot of the advocacy work that they did in the fundraising, the beautiful things that people did for fundraising, and I wanted to get into fundraising. So fundraising, I didn't quite know what to do. The one thing that struck me, because I always saw what a moneymaker could be, and I've always critiqued good and bad, the ones I've been to, my two of my kids came up through soccer. And I spent my life at tournaments all over the country, all over the states. And I mean, it's insane. You spend weekends there. And I would always say, well, why do they do that? Why don't they have this guy here? Why don't they have this? I would have a million ideas. So it felt kind of normal to me to reach out to the people of Howell, New Jersey, because that's who brought my kids up in the early stages of soccer. It was local. And I said, listen, I got this crazy idea. And they hadn't had a tournament in like 10 years. And they were I give them credit. They were on board. The first day that we met in an open field and spoke about it, it didn't matter the particulars. They were in. They believed in the cause, and it just steamrolled from there. My brain started going. We had a rock concert, which I had never seen before. Skills competitions, which I had never seen before. A soccer contest. And listen, the weather dampened some of it a little bit as far as the concert and stuff. So that was a little disappointing. But it raised a lot of money that went to the Fox Foundation, right directly for Parkinson's research. So again, that was kind of my little deal with fundraising, which, we'll dive back into that. But I didn't want to ask people on this site for money because we're all dealing with the same. We're all trying to do the same thing. So it's not about that. And I'm still learning a lot about fundraising and where there are avenues to reach, because I know how important fundraising is to research. So we had a blast. We had, I want to say, 160 teams, which is almost double of what any soccer tournament does. Go back, you can check videos of that. The kids were excited. I was interviewing kids. I was freezing, shaking, of course, that whole weekend, and it murdered my back. It murdered my body. But I have never felt so full in my heart than that weekend. Seeing the Fox Foundation flags, I got to meet Kylie. Kylie is a huge person in my life from Team Fox. She and her staff guided me every step of the way. Constant calls. What do you need? What can I do? The Fox Foundation is the most unbelievable organization as far as everything goes to research. Everything that they give you, the resources, the materials. It wasn't just about raising money. She was there with me at a table with a Fox Foundation tent, educating people with brochures about what it is. Kids were coming up asking, what is this? What is Parkinson's? We were educating. Well, she was educating people. To me, that was a huge thing. At some point, it didn't even become about the numbers we were reaching. It became about the education that we were passing on that weekend. And that was a huge deal for me. And I can't wait to do something like that again. Be a little smarter about it next time as far as planning and what time of year. But that was a huge moment in my life, huge weekend in my life. And again, massive thank you to Howell United Soccer. Massive thank you to my children for all those cold weekends of making me watch them. I should say that because that's the biggest joy of my life, was watching them. Huge, massive thank you to Team Fox, Fox Foundation, and specifically Kylie, who's become a dear friend. I love her to death, and you need to reach out for her because she's doing a lot of good for people like us. So that was my first fundraising adventure. So then after the dust settled on the fundraising for a little bit, I had no idea that there was such a thing called a Fox MVP banquet, a weekend. And even though I probably didn't deserve to be there, somebody was kind enough to invite me, and that weekend may have changed my life and lit a fire like not too many times I can ever remember feeling. When I first got there, they gave me one of these little lanyards. And it was pretty cool. It was kind of like my credentials, going backstage and stuff, behind the curtain, take a peek at some of the things that happened. But it meant a lot more to me 3 days later. And I'll explain why. I went into that weekend, had no clue what to expect. I didn't know what it was about. The first night you have they have a nice thing where you get to meet all the fellow MVP awards people that are there, and you kind of put names with faces and you hear their stories about what they did to fundraise. So it was kind of like an education for me, like, okay, you did the soccer tournament, but here's all the other cool things that people are doing. And I was like, boom, boom, boom. Like, I was like, I could do that. It was really cool. And then the rest of the weekend, aside from having a beautiful dinner and banquet, there was an education. They had breakfast conferences where you start learning about the studies that are involved, and you just think you're raising money, but you're not quite sure how it gets to where it goes. But it made me realize how important funding is towards research to save my life and yours. That opened my eyes. Aside from the funding too, I mean, there were a panel of, some of the higher ups of the Fox Foundation explaining the process, which educated me. I saw a great interview with Dr. Ray Dorsey, and it was also a little bit about the science and the breakthroughs that have been made and the breakthroughs that can be made if we keep pushing the needle. And that was big for me. And then one of the biggest things that happened to me was I walked into the lobby and I met Amy Becker and Drew Hatter, who kind of inspired me and said, there's a little bit of a lag. We could always use a push in New Jersey. And she challenged me. She challenged the wrong person. Don't dare me to do something. And she said, we would love to somehow get to Cory Booker because he's such an advocate for this disease. But we just we need to get his ear. Big mistake, Amy. But it was such a beautiful weekend. But I left that weekend so inspired to move more as far as doing what all you guys are doing. That was a huge thing for me, that MVP awards there. And I got one of these. It was a nice chocolate bar, very, very, very Willy Wonka-ish. And I'm sure it tastes great, but I never opened it. And that's because I promised everybody that weekend that I would not open it until a cure was found. So I still have it. I still look at it every day. I cherish it. It's not opened. Chocolate is not going to stay good forever. So I need your help, guys. The main thing I left with that weekend from the MVP Awards was, and I tell everybody who ever asked me this, was hope. It educated me how much advancement has been made in the past 10 years in PD research and how close we are to where we need to be. And I wanted to be part of that. I'm sold. I told everybody at the Fox Foundation, I'm in. Whatever you need me to do, I'm there. So this is why I wanted to make a video like this, because this power in numbers, guys. Whatever minuscule baby piece you could do to help push the needle, it's appreciated. It's needed. But I knew even if I was uncomfortable, I wanted to do more. So I dove into faith. I started praying more. I started praying for others. Whatever good karma I could get on this community, because I owe it everything to it. I started putting my feelings more on camera. And I started paying attention to people like Allie and Reka and everybody who wasn't afraid to show tremors. That was important to me. Seeing the bad side of Parkinson's and others gave me hope that I wasn't alone. But it also made me realize that there's nothing wrong with showing it. You could speak to people all you want about, listen, you're not alone. But sometimes you got to show them. You got to show them, listen, I got this too. That meant the world to me. And from that point on, I just wasn't afraid to, whatever my mannerisms were, if I was having a good day, a bad day, an off day, I was going to put my feelings out there. I wanted people to feel like they weren't alone. I wanted to bring hope and positivity because, listen, you need that. I say in all my videos, you can do all the meds and PT you want. This disease starts here. You got to get this right first so you could tackle anything. So I started getting a little more into positive energy and affirmations and trying to get people on board with positivity and gratitude. And it worked. I get messages every single day about that was just a message I needed. Well, listen, I would be typing you all messages every day if that was the case, because you guys give it to me 20 times over in the course of a day. That's why I do it. So after that MVP Awards dinner, there was a fire lit in me, and I couldn't wait for the next step. But to me, I learned a little bit about the community. I learned a little bit about fundraising at that point. I felt kind of comfortable. I was getting some ideas, even though I had done it very amateuristically, I would say. But so now the next thing was I wanted to try and learn a little bit about the science, the medicine, and the politics of it. Because sadly, that's what it all comes down to, guys, is somehow getting to Washington and having a voice and trying to move a needle. So I wanted to position myself to do whatever I can in the community's eyes, and especially specifically the Fox Foundation, because, listen, you could have a megaphone and you could be brave enough to use it, but if nobody puts an audience in front of you and gives you that opportunity, like the Fox Foundation did for me, for a lot of us, it doesn't mean anything. It's like I tell my kids, you could be the best at everything in the world, but sometimes doors need to get open for you. And I believe that hard work and faith will make that happen. It's a way of getting rewarded for doing good. It's not an accident. And the Fox Foundation did that for me. So I knew that down the road, this little policy forum was coming. And when I ever got an invite to that, that's it. I was in. I researched everything I had to research. Amy Becker will make you laugh as far as telling you the folders that I came up with and the recon work I did as far as who I know I was going to speak to. I was constantly hounding Senator Booker's office. I'm sure they won't want me to tell you that because they don't want everybody else doing it, but they were so gracious, every week or so, sir, I'm sorry, he's busy in Washington. He's not coming back to New Jersey. Until one day I said, well, listen, I call you bluff. I'll be in Washington too. So I got to Washington, and I'm not going to replay the whole story for you because you guys are probably sick of hearing about it, but got one of these. And this meant a lot to me. This was a pass, in my mind, to possibly be able to speak in one of the most powerful forums in the world. You're talking to lawmakers. And even if it's not them specifically, it's people that they've entrusted and hired to get our word to them. And I believe that. And I was with some amazing advocates that I learned a lot from, that I'm so proud of to be in the room with them. I sat in a room with some amazing advocates telling their stories that hit you right here. Muhammad Ali's wife, Dr. Dorsey, one of the leading neurologists in his field. And if I didn't have Parkinson's, I would have been shaken anyway. And that's a pretty huge dais to have to speak in front of. But a year in this community, watching your stories, absorbing your courage, I wasn't afraid. I was taught from all you guys to speak from the heart. And speaking from the heart about my story and things that led up to this point, I think opened eyes. I don't know. I mean, everybody was so kind to me and saying, oh my God, you had everybody in the room crying. That wasn't the intent. But I zoned out, I just started talking from the mind. It wasn't about stats and money. It was about save my life. What do we have to do to save my life, their life, and the million other people that suffer every day? It's enough. And when you're in Washington, you got to make them understand. I was big on saying, I don't care what your political views are. This affects everybody. Democrat, Republican, black, white. It doesn't matter your sexual preference. Stop looking for an enemy. Where you feel like we have to find an enemy in this country, always, constantly, to fight somebody. Can't the enemy be somebody that we're all mad at? Like Parkinson's or cancer? Let's all get on the same page together and move a needle for each other. Something that's going to help everybody. That's what unites countries. That's what unites a country. Getting on the same page. Just like after 9/11, everybody was on the same page. We were all together. Even your neighbor that you hated, you loved when you hung that flag up. We need to get back there. And something like this should be able to do that for us. Not just Parkinson's, everything somebody suffers from. Any disease that that doesn't discriminate against anybody. Let's get behind that. Let's put up our energy behind that. But it was a big weekend for me as far as, again, educating myself in another area of this, as far as funding and advisory councils and what truly goes into getting people in Washington to change their minds to hopefully bring this to the budget, bring this to the table to save lives. So again, the picture was becoming a little more complete as far as things that need to get done. And this was a massive, massive education for me. And I'm so grateful to have been there. So I think that the general feeling when I left Washington was that we're very close, but we need obviously a lot more funding. And that comes from advocacy work, which a lot of very intelligent people told me early on in this journey is just telling your story. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. Telling it from the heart. Just doing that and following your lead has brought me from somebody who was sitting in a car in a very dark place a year ago to somebody who just spent a half hour with Senator Cory Booker talking about my family, my kids, my dad, his dad, Parkinson's. He wants to work with me in the future to see what we can do to get the word out. We made a PSA that we sent out. I have news outlets calling me. And I'm not proud because, I told you I tried my best to stay off camera because I was embarrassed of myself. But it's a success because it's helping get the word out. So I urge you, and the reason I made this video, now is the time to strike gold, guys. We need numbers. And like I told you, everybody brings a little something different to the table. I can't do what a million other people do that do more than I do. But if I could start in a dark place in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot on a rainy day a year ago, and what a difference a year makes. And I credit you all for that. Then anybody could do it. So I urge you, even if being on camera is not your thing, traveling to Washington or New York or anywhere to speak your story is not your thing. I get it. But maybe write a letter to your congressman. Be a pain in the ass that way. Nobody has to know that. Help move the needle. Do a fundraiser where you're not on camera. It's not about telling everybody what you're doing. Just do it. There's always a way you can help. There truly is. And the one thing that I have gotten in this year of all this work that I've been trying to do is how close we are. And it's not fighting a losing battle. Trust me, we are very close. This is not going to stay fresh forever. And we need your help. I beg you, do whatever you can. Whatever your comfort level is, as far as getting out there and spreading the word, I beg of you to do it. And if there's any help I can give you along the way, my phone always rings and I always answer it. I'm always here for you guys because you were always there for me. I love you to death. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me.